Yeah, hello viewers, wherever you are in Kenya, outside of this nation. Thank you. Welcome to Slope TV, where we do top-notch analysis of events, political happenings, and news on whatever matters that are happening across the country and beyond. And today, of course, we want to pick on a matter, an issue that is quite moving and is being discussed by every Kenyan, the impeachment of one Rigathe Gachagua, RG, the man himself, the man from the mountain, mtu wa Murima. Leo tunaongea juu ya hiyo impeachment, and we know, of course, yesterday the High Court was able to render its verdict on the consolidated cases, over 40 of them that had been raised concerning the impeachment of one Rigathe Gachagua, the former DP or Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Of course, I did mention a few things concerning his impeachment in a previous episode that has run on this TV. And today we just want to pick up, now that the courts have spoken. The courts are spoken. The judges, the lordships, Mrima. And we had, of course, the lady Mugambi. And of course, the presiding judge. Now, they have spoken concerning this matter, and now it is upon Gachagua and his people and the lawyers representing him to digest the import of that judgment and to decide on the next course of action. And of course, we know the issues that were being canvassed. One of them is whether really Rigathe Gachagua was impeached. His impeachment stance, was it constitutional? So they were looking at the constitutionality of the impeachment of one Rigathe Gachagua and whether the trial was fair. And that is another matter that was canvassed. And of course, there were other issues around it, whether Kithure Kindiki, the current deputy president, professor, was appointed or elected or whatever the process that happened in the correct manner and constitutionally. There were, of course, issues as to whether he was allowed fair time to be able to defend himself. And without going to the nitty-gritties of this particular, the matters that were being canvassed, that the learned judges were able to summarize and bring them into issues, particular issues, that then they had to bring their views on and to decide on. Now, a lot of noise and a lot of smoke around rising from that particular judgment, because we know, for one, that after all that they said, having said that for example, the public participation, they ruled that it was done in the right manner. In as far as the quantity of it, or the quantitative and the qualitative analysis of the public participation, they were satisfied by both. In other words, they indicated that the National Assembly or Parliament did not have the obligation to have to meet every Kenyan, that they had to provide a platform, an opportunity for as many as possible in a representative way. And I think they were able to analyze the data that Parliament was able to afford opportunity to Kenyans across the 290 constituencies and other places, and through the digital platforms and through the newspapers. They were able to invite Kenyans to present their memoranda. They were able to afford Kenyans opportunity for oral submissions concerning the impeachment of Rigathe Gachagua. They were also able to say that quantitatively it didn't matter that they were not able probably to get the 56 million of us. Of course, we know in that number there are children, there are young ones, there are those in schools, there are others who were not interested. So what was required is a representative number to show that the Kenyan people were part of the process, and they said that was done. Of course, the other thing is the constitutionality of that. And I think they were able to go to the Constitution. I'm not a lawyer myself, but they showed that that process is anchored in the Constitution. And they were able to separate the process of impeaching a governor and the process of impeaching a deputy president or a president. Because in the Constitution, the process of impeaching a sitting president or deputy president is with a finality, whereas that of the governor can be questioned by the courts, can be revised, can have, can be stopped, can be injected. But the impeachment of the president or the deputy president, the High Court was able to speak loudly that it is done with a finality and that the court is not able to interfere with that process at that point, because when the Senate, which is the adjudicator in the process, sits to adjudicate in the process of impeachment of a deputy president, it does so as a quasi court. It is a quasi judicial process. And so when they sit, they are not sitting at the Senate. And so they said that Senate was not required to do any public participation, which had been faulted, of course, by the petitioners, that the Senate never conducted public participation. And so it was the opinion of the High Court that that is not the purview of the Senate when it sits for an impeachment situation like the one that we have had, because then they are seated as a court. And what matters before that particular quasi-judicial court, it is the evidence that is presented, and both the submissions of the petitioners, the submissions of the other party, and of course their cross-examination, which is supposed to be done, the initial examination, the cross-examination, both parties, and therefore from that they are able to come up with a judgment. And in this particular case, the court found the rest of the process had gone on, as per the law, that it was lawful. The impeachment went on in the right process. The thing they questioned, and I was listening very carefully, they questioned the matter whereby after Gachagua, the former DP, and through his able lawyers, and even himself seated there, were able to present their submissions, their evidence, and everything else. And now it was time for Gachagua to be cross-examined. Now that is where problem came. And Gachagua disappeared. All of a sudden, he couldn't be traced. And that is where now the Senate, seated as a court, was able to postpone briefly to allow Gachagua to come. And Gachagua never came. And his lawyer, Paul Muite, indicated that his client was unwell and somewhere in hospital, and he was not able to get him to brief him. Those are the issues, if I'm not wrong, those are the issues that I was able to capture. And the Senate was not supplied with primary evidence to show that Gachagua was either admitted or unwell. It was just mentioned. And Senate ruled in the interest of the squeezed timelines that they were to proceed whether Gachagua was there or not. And so they proceeded. The lawyers of one Gachagua were there, and they were able to render their initial verdict in the Senate, and they were able to impeach Gachagua on several grounds. Some grounds, of course, were they were not able to stand the trial at the Senate. But there are those items, there are those accusations that the Senate agreed with. And by a vote of majority, more than 2/3, Gachagua was impeached. Gachagua was impeached. And so after the impeachment, of course, a lot of discussions. Was it valid? Was it okay? Were there some areas that he was not given the right to hearing, and so on and so forth? Was justice done? And that discussion has been there. And this has been a hot potato, because impeachment carries a lot of weight. Because if then he is impeached, and properly impeached, and it is on record he is impeached, then the fruits of that impeachment, one of it is that then he cannot enjoy the benefits of a former deputy president of retirement. He will retire in infamy. And the second thing is that he cannot run for any public office. Any public office. After impeachment, you are disqualified from running for any public office, which then means that should that be the case, then Gachagua cannot run for MCA, cannot run for a chairman of like they like saying, for a cattle dip chair. He can't run for Senate. He can't run for presidency. He can't run for any public office. Period. That is what it means. That he can't run for any particular office in the Republic of Kenya. Now, that be as it may, we want to look then at those findings and try to look at what it means for the future of Gachagua, the DCP party, and the Kenyan politics as it were, and especially the politics of the mountain. And so now the High Court, having seen that he was not given fair trial at some point in the Senate, agreed with the process. They said the National Assembly was able to do its work well. And when Senate therefore sat and made a decision to impeach, they said it was complete, and that was final. And so the court cannot move back on that. They were not able to stay that. They were not able to nullify the injunction. And what it means as we speak today, the one and only Gachagua RG stands impeached. He stands impeached. He has entered the record of an impeached deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. The court also awarded him 50 million shillings that he had not asked for. They agreed, according to them in their view, they averred that there was a miscarriage of justice in as far as getting him the space to present his issues, to be cross-examined was concerned. And so they asked, or they ordered the Senate to pay one Gachagua 50 million shillings. Now the question is, will they pay? I don't know. But even having awarded him that, they insisted he stands impeached. And so my thinking on this, around this case, is that the High Court actually gave a win, small wins for both parties, and they're trying to balance their judgment, and they avoided, disturbing the status quo, because some of these judgments have constitutional implications. That if then they said that the deputy president was impeached improperly, probably then it will mean he reverts to his former position, the deputy president. And yet, one Professor Abraham Kindiki Kithure is the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. I think in working around that, they confirmed and they affirmed that Professor Kithure Kindiki was appointed or was elected. Actually, they use the word vote. So elected through parliament, the representatives of the people, through the people's power that is delegated to the people's representatives. And when they voted, they said they were an electoral college. So the electoral college of the National Assembly elected one Professor Kithure Kindiki, having been nominated by the president, and he was successfully elected the deputy president through the people's representatives. And so they said his being in office is illegal. They gave a stamp of approval as the High Court. Now, that is where the rubber meets the road. Now, the petitioners, and there are many, I heard them say they want copies of the judgment, they want the oral evidence, they want the recording, because they intend to go and appeal. And I think they have a right to appeal. They have a right to appeal. The other side also say they will wait for them in court, because also they will be ready to argue their case. Now, arising from that, today as we speak, Gachagua stands impeached. No one is sure that after going to the Court of Appeal, he is going to win the case. The probability is there that he may win parts of it, he may also lose. He may as well even lose the 50 million awarded. He could win, but we don't know. So the parties will go there, they will argue their cases, and the Court of Appeal will in time be able to decide and come up with the right or with their own opinion. But now, for us, we may not venture there. We want to look at the situation as it is. Now, Rigathe, after impeachment, he has cobbled up together the DCP party. Now, he has been able to gather around masses, and especially the people of the mountain, the communities around the mountain. That is a fact. He has gotten their support. I may not say 100%, probably a 60% support, probably 65% support. We will have to wait even for those who are doing their own studies on the same. But we know he has significant support around the mountain. Around other places, we don't know. Now, the question that arises, therefore, is will the impeached deputy president, former deputy president Gachagua, be able to hold the mountain people around him when they know he cannot run for office? He cannot run for office. When one is impeached, there is zilch probability that you can run for office. And so we know he has not exhausted the process. But will the people of the mountain follow him even when he has no chance of taking up any office? Is that how the mountain people calculate their probabilities? From independence, we know the mountain people are calculative. They are business people. I think 70%, 7 out of 10 of the mountain people, they are people who work their chances through business calculations. These are investors. These are business people. Hawa ni watu wa sokoni. Na kwa hivyo, our mathematics, and I'm one of them, the mathematics of the mountain people will automatically center around the probability for their businesses being able to find space to grow and thrive. That is how mountain people think. Now, if Gachagua is not there, what is his importance in the political calculations of today and tomorrow? If he cannot stand for any office, what is his position? I mean, what is his relevance as a leader of the mountain people? Is he still relevant? And so the question then arises, will people gather around Gachagua and impeach Gachagua? Then he goes probably and does a transaction with another team and sells the votes of the mountain people to another place. Is that what they are looking at? And so the question arises, who are the senior most political leaders around the mountain that therefore can be the alternative to Gachagua, or can be the people who can rally around the mountain people towards whatever cause, towards a political journey? And at this point, we must look at the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Why is it that Uhuru Kenyatta has, in my opinion, refused to relinquish the seat of the leader of the Jubilee Party? I know the Jubilee Party is not the same party that had taken leadership in Uhuru Ruto. It has been watered down a bit. But why is it that Uhuru is not ready to relinquish the party leader's position even to Matiang'i, his choice? That is a question, and we need to look at it. We need to dig deeper beyond the optics. Why has he refused? Is it that he had foreseen these things? Is it that he can see Gachagua's days as the leader of the mountain people, they are numbered? Is it that he understands the issue of impeachment more? And he thinks that when this probably is confirmed, that Gachagua is totally impeached and cannot run for office, is Uhuru then positioning himself to remain relevant and to be the kingpin of the mountain people so that he can chart a direction? Akina Kiraitu Murungis, they have retired. Peter Munya, Linturi, I can't see them gathering the people around. Moses Kuria, the man from Kiambu, the MP for Uhuru Kenyatta. I have seen him, coming up again. He's been with Ruto. He's been a cabinet secretary, and he was moved out after the riots of the Gen Zs because of the pressure. But now we see him gravitating around the mountain again. He's trying to provide alternative leadership. What about him? What about Lee Kinyanjui? What about Waiguru, the governor Waiguru? What about the current deputy president, Kindiki Kithure? Is he able to galvanize the mountain people? Presently, he is the senior-most political leader around the mountain. We cannot wish him away. He has a senior position. He has a position of influence. And you can use influence to draw people around yourself. Does he have the mettle? Does he have the courage, the charisma to be able to attract the mountain people around himself? These are the questions we should be asking. Does he have the financial muscle? Does he have the networks? You see, Uhuru Kenyatta, he has the networks that he established during his presidency. And he has the financial chest. But then now you apply that. That is another question. Now the other issue to consider is now that Uhuru Kenyatta has publicly supported one Matiang'i for the presidency. Is it really his calculation? Will he go with Matiang'i to the end? Or is he playing another game? Does he have other cards under the table? Is he the one that is going to bring the biggest upset even as we move forward towards 2027? Why am I saying that the possibility of Uhuru Kenyatta having discussions again with William Ruto? If there was a Uhuru Ruto previously, who says there can't be another Uhuru Ruto in the coming days? And these are the questions we are asking. And we are saying the impeachment of Gachagua is a significant happening. I have seen his lawyers move around, Dego and Jiro and others, and they have spoken things, yes. But we must call it as it is. This is an impeachment. Now, if he is able to have it stayed and he gets another chance, that is out there. That is out there. We have to wait for the Court of Appeal. And remember, time is running. Nobody knows how long it may take. How long it may take. The case may go for a year, may go for even more than a year. So where is the time to prepare? Where is the time to prepare? And that brings us to the other very important question. The alternative government and their leadership. Because they are saying they will present one candidate for presidency. Now, it was looking like Rigathe Gachagua has been preparing for that presidency, and more than once he has said he's the right man. He has the numbers, he has the gravitas. But we have seen also Kalonzo Musyoka, bring up his campaign platform this week, and he has said he's going for nothing less than the presidency. And now with the impeachment, is Kalonzo Musyoka feeling a little bit, upbeat? Does he feel now I'm the man? Is it that this impeachment could also divide the alternative government? Why is it that we did not see some of these luminaries of the alternative government in the courtroom during the judgment? I thought they were one piece, and during such critical moments, they ought to have stuck together. A brother in need is a brother indeed. So where were these brothers and sisters at the time of Gachagua's need? I didn't see them in court. And optics speak a lot, you know. There is a lot of perception around it that there are internal disagreements. That is why the Kalonzos, the mothers, Mother Karua, the Matiangis of this world, they were not there during the judgment on the impeachment of one Rigathe Gachagua. And so as we move forward then, looking at the coming days, very interesting times lie ahead. Will Gachagua, for example, once he realizes that he is out of the equation, be able to say so-and-so tosha? Can he say Kalonzo tosha? Can he say Matiang'i tosha? Now we also know Gachagua is very much, his politics are centered around Mount Kenya. Will he allow a situation where there is nobody of significance in the mathematics of the alternative government as we look at 2027? And is he a man that can raise another to take his position? Can he allow the Medhus of this world? Can he allow the Malalas, Cleophas Malalas of this world to take up DCP leadership? And that is the next point. If then the impeachment stands, and as it is today, it stands until there is another movement in the court, will he allow someone else, even in the interim, to take over the leadership of the DCP party? Na hapo mambo ni mazito, because I don't see Gachagua doing that. And then if he does that, what is this? I mean, what happens to the followers who have followed him in their thousands and their millions? Will he still have the same influence as he had? These are important questions. And so on this forum, our intention was to look at that judgment. What are the consequential, results of that particular, the ruling that we got. And it is our opinion here at Slope TV that this judgment will occasion a lot of movement in the political landscape. If this is not an earthquake, I think a political earthquake is in the making. And I will not be surprised if after the impeachment, some of those who have done their mathematics around Gachagua, there will be a lot of shift. I will not be surprised if there are men and women right now in senior positions within the DCP calibration and the alternative government calibration who are already looking for contacts to be able to talk to probably President William Samoei Ruto. Am I being prophetic? I think I could be. But prepare yourselves. Kenyans, prepare yourselves. You ain't seen nothing yet. Things are going to happen. I'm telling you, as we come to next year, a lot of political changes will take place. In fact, I propose tectonic changes will take place in this Kenya. That alignments will shift. Alignments will shift. And I think it's about time that Gachagua brought together a team of thinkers to help him craft the next move. And remember, even as we discuss this, that in politics, there are no permanent enemies, neither are there permanent friends. What you have permanent, they are permanent interests. Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto came together not because they were best of friends, but because their interests converged, because the ICC was on their necks. Now Gachagua is in a catch-22 situation. What will happen of the man? Your bet is as good as mine. But Time will tell. Time will tell. Bye-bye, Kenyans. Let's chat later and continue the conversation right here on Slope TV. Thank you.